Greetings, welcome back to Pink Oddbird. Today I'm here to share two books that I've made with you, so let's go ahead and get started. Daisy over at Tsunami Rose has sent me her Birds, Bees, and Peonies digital kit, and she sent it to me last I want to say like December, but I've been busy, so I haven't had a chance to use the kit yet. So I was really ready to kind of use these because of all the transitioning that's happening with springtime and daylight savings time, and so I thought that these colors would be really just fun. They're really punchy colors in her kit, and so I obviously tried to mimic that with the items that I used so that it would all come together cohesively, and I'm so happy with how these look. So let's take a look at, they're mostly the same. One is a traveler's notebook size, and then one is kind of like a standard 8.5 by 5.5 size. So I will flip through one in greater detail than the other, and then I'll do a quicker flip through on the second one. So we'll start with this one. And I've just used Sari Silk as the closure, and on top of the book I have this little pretty packet of things, and I was inspired to do this by Moonside Parlour. She is where I personally saw this being done, so I wanted to give credit to her for where I saw it, but she likes to add these really pretty bundles on top of her books. So check her out. She's on Instagram and she makes tons of beautiful things. So what I've just done is I've used some vintage lace seam binding to hold it all together, and what's in here is an Edith Holden book page. So this one comes with April, and then there is another book page here where this is vintage and it's little honeybees, and with these you can use them to collage. You can put coffee stained paper or gesso on the inside, or you could actually just glue it up and use it as an envelope in your book. So lots of things that you can do with those. I've also made one of these little fabric envelopes that were inspired by Sabrina, and this is some bee fabric that I actually picked up when I was in Hawaii with my mom. And I've been waiting to use this fabric forever. This one, the insides of these are vintage recipe book pages, and so it's kind of fun. The other envelope actually has a recipe. If you look inside, I think it's Waikiki ham. So it's kind of a little fun fact and ties together with the fact that I picked up the fabric in Hawaii. But yeah, so this is something that you can also use in your book. And then lastly, there's actually antique book page. These are from 1904, and I picked this one because it says the flowers, and being that the kit is birds, bees, and peonies. The cover I just kind of I modeled this cover sort of like my space book that I did recently, so it's just a little combination of fabrics here, and I have some pretty laces. This is a vintage lace here. But this is a really fun cover, I feel like, and then it says Bee Journal right here on the front. So when you open it up, on the front inside pocket here, well, on the inside cover, I've done some collaging. I use a lot of my vintage and antique stuff in this book because I was like, why not? I've been hanging on to it for so long. So I use some scrap rose paper. This paper here is vintage from the 1800s, and then this little piece of newspaper here is that newspaper from the 1900s, early 1900s. I want to say it's 1905 that I used, and I put that in here as well. And then just little random bits, and I just did some stitching around to give it some texture. So there's a little plant card here with a little tag that I've attached to that. And I will link Daisy's kit down below, so if you're interested in this kit, you can pick it up because it's beautiful. I had these little Autobahn note cards in my stash, so I put one of these in each of the books. This book, being that it's a little bit wider than the other, I didn't have to cut it down, but I did have to cut the other one down because the book is more narrow. So I had this really pretty, kind of like hand-stitched doily, and I really only had like a piece of it left, so I used some of that same vintage lace seam binding, and I attached that to this little doily piece and to have in here. So if it bothers you that you have to untie the doily to get into the signature, you can just cut these off and use the lace somewhere else in the book. So again, I have just done a little, this book doesn't have as much sewing as I normally do, All of these that are in the book are the originals, so it's just a fun little, you know, antique piece to your book, I guess. I've used some of these little bird book pages as well, and then these are my little vintage book plates that I have. So here in the back, this is another original. It's got just some writing. I picked these up from A Bit of Birdsong's Etsy store. And then here's a pumpkin bread recipe card, but I love how old this is. Like the tape is yellowing, the page is all, or the card is all brown. Daisy has included like lots of pages like this, and you can do like little journaling in areas like this on the page, or if you're not sure what to do with pages like this, you can collage on these pages. You can add coffee stained paper to these pages, or plain just white paper. You can glue photos over these pages and you have a pretty background behind the photo. So there's really a lot of choices for what you can do on these kinds of pages. So again, some lace trim. I did a very little amount of stamping. Some garden vintage book pages. I stamped little bees on the tags. So just a note card that I've punched here, and these are vintage calling cards. Whoa, dogs. This is a vintage calling card, so I thought it was really a fun little element to add into the book, being that it has the flowers on it. This is a little page from an address book, a vintage address book that I had, but I thought that that would make a fun little journaling spot. And then here's a little catalog card, also from Lynn's shop. So over here, I have a little tiny tag, and then there's a vintage book page here, and these book pages are basically just vintage trivia. So I thought those would be a little fun element to take a look at. There's 3 charms on each book, so there's one there. This is a vintage gardening page, so again, something that you can use to collage or, you know, put somewhere else, just so get creative with your books. There's a little tab using that same lace that's on the cover. Some more of that paper from the 1800s. Look how just beautifully grungy and old it is. I really, you know, I really like to hoard those kinds of things, but there comes a time when you're just like, okay, just use it. I don't think I really used coffee stained paper in here. If I remember correctly, I wanted to use the avocado stained paper because it really matched really nicely with the colors of the kit. And this beautiful avocado paper comes from Renee at GT Designs, so I'll link her below if you're trying to get your hands on some pretty avocado stained paper. It's a bingo card here. And there is an old letter in each one of the books. So I've just attached it over the top. It was already folded like this, so I just put a little Tim Holtz clip on there. And I guess that's just a little quirk about this letter. I think that's kind of interesting. So it goes page 1, 3, 2, 4, 5, 7, and 6, and plain on the back. That's an interesting little letter there. Okay, so moving on. I've just used a little garment pen here, and I put a little wing on there, again tying in with the bird theme. There's some more of that same doily that's holding the signature closed. This was just a cute little springtime page I thought was nice to add in. And then down here I have some vintage ledger paper that I kind of just tore, and it adds some more writing space on the avocado paper here. This was a wedding dress that I had found, so I just put a little piece of that in there as well. Another vintage recipe card. And here is another charm. So over here we have, this is another I think they're called vintage papers from Lynn's shop, but you can use this to write on the back. And then there's just a little bag and a little grid card. Here's the third charm. This little tag, I thought it would be kind of fun just to do a little stitch that kind of mimics, like, you know, when you see drawings in books that as like when bees are flying by, it has like the little swirls. So that's why I chose to do that stitch for this tag. This piece is just, I put on with washi tape so you can move that around. A little fabric collage there. Some more of that paper. Stamped a little star here. And this is a Spellbound card. Did a little punching on the border there. If I take this paper clip off, there's a little tuck spot inside of here. And then I just added in another book page. And it's got some more really pretty images on here. And then on the back side, another one of those bird pages and some more collaging with that old paper. Here I just put this little vintage photograph in because it was really sweet, and I thought that maybe this was kind of like springtime because they're dressed in their shorts and little short sleeve shirts and suspenders. Flowers are blooming behind them, so I thought that was kind of a pretty little photo to add in here. So I have this little piece from my lace stash that I got last year. This is a vintage by Airmail Par Avion envelope. And I like these because they're really thin material, but the colors really match, so that's mostly why I added it. So there's another piece from her kit, the other side of the doily. And then in the back here, I added in these wallpaper envelopes, which I also picked up from Lynn's store. I will link it because she's got some really fun items. She's out in North Carolina, so she comes across some really neat things. So I want to share her shop with you. So I stamped this little fairy here, and she's admiring all of the flowers. And then you've got a little writing space over here. And then on the front side, I just did a collage with some colors to match with the kit. And it's plain on the inside, so you can just, or empty on the inside, so you can just add some things. So there's that. And then in the very back of the book, you can see another collage that I've done here. There's a little birds, bees, and peonies tag, and then I've got this little tiny envelope that comes with a kit and put a little bird tag in there. And then there's my stamp. So that's this one. We'll call this one Bee Journal because that's what it says on the front. Let me go ahead and quickly flip through the other book with you, and that will be it for today. So we'll be right back. So with this book, it's pretty much the same idea. And the only difference is, I'm sorry about all the dogs outside. The only difference is mainly just the sizing of these. So here is the bundle for this one. So here's the book page from 1904, but I thought this was so cute. These are the originals, so you will have to be very careful with these because they're delicate. The envelope, here is the little bug book page that goes with this book. And the Edith Holden book page is here as well. So here's the second book, and you can see I did do the cover a little bit different on this one, just because I wanted it to be similar but a little different than the other, where on this one I have the fabrics going like 1, 2, 3, top, middle, and bottom, and on this one I did it like a little bit more patchwork, kind of. So I'm going to flip through this one quickly because, like I said, it's mostly similar to the other. It has, you know, the similar elements, but obviously some are kind of different. Like the page with the writing on it obviously is going to have different writing than the other one. So mostly similar, but sort of different. Look at that beautiful paper. This letter is a little different, obviously. The envelope, I love it because it's so thin on this one. And the paper that they chose to write on is also like a really thin, like just lightweight, crinkly paper. Also from 1944. And this one is to Dearest Mom and All. From Jack. I really think it's kind of cool how the avocado paper really complements the really like naturally aged paper. I used a little piece from the kit to make a tuck spot here. This is the envelope that goes with the card that I had to cut down, the Audubon card, but I thought that would be fun to distress or decoupage, things like that. Here's another book page. So here I just made a pocket with that envelope. Here is the wallpaper envelope for this book. You can see how pretty. I just think these colors are so vibrant and punchy. I love it. Super fun little, you know, kit to have here. So here's the back of the book. Again, some collaging with that antique paper. There are a couple of little tags. There's my stamp, and that is it. So so these are the two books that I have made using her kit, Birds, Bees, and Peonies. And I'm really happy with the way that these turned out. So if you guys like these, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. I will have these listed in my Etsy shop, and they will be there until they're not. And that is going to wrap it up for me for now. Be sure to stay tuned because you never know what direction this odd flock of ours is heading into. And until next time, toodaloo.